Welcome to Crypto Talk Radio, the podcast for everyday investors like you. Visit us on the web at cryptotalkradio.net. And now, here's your host, Leister.
Thank you for that, Bailey, and welcome everybody out there in Crypto Talk Radio, found at cryptotalkradio.net. At the top of the show, a quick public service announcement. It's possible, I don't know 100%, but it's possible that my show may stop being broadcast to Spotify. I don't know 100%, but if you're listening, CryptoTalk.fm, to Spotify as your means of consuming the podcast, it's possible it may no longer be at some point. I could be misreading what they're doing, but seems like they're changing something because on the sister podcast, I got an email out of thin air that said, hey, looks like you're infringing on something with this. And of course, what they're talking about is a snippet of a song where the original artist actually no longer exists on this spatial plane. They're deceased. And so I reached out for certain rights and I cannot get a response because they don't exist. And I don't know if something happened. I mean, we're talking an old something. It's old to the point I've not gotten a takedown on YouTube on it because it was on YouTube a couple times. Nothing there. I've not gotten anything from any other. It's just Spotify. It was one episode and it was a recent one. And I think what's happening. So on the sister show, every now and then I'll do giveaways. And when that happens, it spikes listeners. And so I think it's simply because it got more attention where prior, because of low listenership, then they just said, hey, whatever, deep. I think that's what it is. So I responded, said, I consider it fair use because I'm not using it in an infringing manner in any form. I'm not using the totality of it. I'm not using it for anything other than it's like an intro thing. So we'll see how that goes. But if there was going to be something, I would assume, certainly, I mean, you guys have heard it, like with the out of cycle updates, we have all sorts of things, never a bleep from Spotify. So I don't know what happened with that one. I have no idea because this show gets more listens than the other sister show most of the time. I don't know. It could be a fluke. I call it out. If you're listening from Spotify, that might happen. I've not heard a peep from iTunes. So that's an option for some people. I've not heard a peep from, I'm on Pandora. I'm on, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio. We're on all sorts of platforms. If you're not sure, CryptoTalk.fm, at the bottom, it has all the different ones that we're on. I'm just calling it out if you are a Spotify person. And remember, Joe Rogan went through the same bullshit, so it could just be them playing games. I'm not really sure. For cryptocurrency, we don't have much to talk about today. I do have a 101. We'll get into that, but I don't have a lot to talk about. There wasn't much of any substance. There was a couple of notes that some people were excited about, and I said, it's fine. Doesn't really do much for me, brother. CoinMarketCap.com. We will zoom out to the month chart, starting with Ethereum this time, only because Ethereum tapered off unexpectedly, had somewhat of a climb momentum, and then started to taper off, then started to go a little bit lower, but still upward trending. In other words, the velocity slowed down. People speculate it's because of Bitcoin, which had the same movement over the month chart where it was climbing and then it tapered off, but still an upward trend, just not as strong. I will call out some people on the YouTube side who said when we hit $78,000 very recently, we're back, maybe this is where it's going. And I don't know if you paid attention, but we're currently at $76,000 mark and people are kind of skeptical. And then there's all these articles about Saylor bought a bunch more Bitcoin and BlackRock got a lot more Bitcoin and the ETFs. And you notice none of that's really moving the chart price because you still have a bunch of crap going on. So from my lens, I do see upward, but nowhere near strong. And we probably have at least one more week going. Some people think that Saylor's activity is going to at some point hit a fever pitch to where he's buying up, or at least one of the people buying up what's for sale, and it's going to create a shock, and that's going to cause an upward price run. Maybe if it does, we have to see where it goes. I don't know because there's still a bunch of crap going on. So big picture, I wasn't watching it too close. I just said, okay, well, it's whatever. Do I own some? Yeah, but it's kind of it's two of those where it's like, this is going to at least double. And I just said, let's sit on it and let it double. But I'm not getting anything that's going to try to make wealthy because I have a JOB. I'm not as fervent about it as I might have done years ago when it mattered. That's just me. Some people are like, they're all in it. I don't do that. Sorry. Some of the things that other people were talking about that they were really excited about was, this Solana and, payment cards at Western Union, Cardano and Bitcoin, something else going on with the Visa network. And it just, all of this is a bunch of fluff. It doesn't mean anything yet. It might mean something later, but right now it doesn't mean anything. It's just words like the Solana business. Solana allegedly and Western Union, this was chatted about a while ago. I covered it a while ago. That was over a year ago. And they're just now getting any kind of forward motion. Well, that's because you don't have Clarity Act. Clarity Act's kind of stalled. Initially, it was about stablecoin yields. Now it's all a whole bunch of other stuff holding it up. And I said, you got a ways to go. And then we got the midterms coming at some point, and then that's going to derail a bunch of stuff. And then you got the SAVE Act, which is on the Biden, where he's trying to waive a bunch of student loan debt. And then that got shot down. The DOE sent out a message to people, students, basically threatening them, telling them, you're going to have to pay this back. That got shot down. It was illegal. It wasn't illegal. It was legal at the time. And then it became illegal after the appeals. That's what happens. And then so a bunch of students got approved for it. They're cheering that they don't have to pay for these loans. And then the Trump administration locked that down. Well, that whole takes effect in the future. It hasn't taken fully effect. It's taken full effect in the future. So a lot of people are just sitting on it saying, we're just going to wait this out, because if more people get in to where Trump becomes a lame duck, it's possible they reenact the SAVE Act guidelines and then they overturn this shit again. It's a whole chaotic mess because you're playing with people's money. There's a lot of money at play. And yes, I think it is true. If a student got a college degree and they were able to get gainful employed and the school wasn't a scam, I do think you should be required to pay that back. That's a lot of ifs, right? If you have some student that got the college degree but couldn't get a gainful job, is that because of something with the student or because the degree was garbage, like a liberal arts degree? Or let's say they couldn't get a degree because the school was a scam. I was in that situation. I have a degree, but initially the one I went for, I couldn't get because the school scammed me. So there's that. And then I went to other schools and then they scammed me like it's bad. The only reason I got the degree I have is because I found a school that was at least somewhat ethical. Then those jack-offs, after I graduated, so there's nothing they could do about it, they actually tried to send me to collections over $10 fucking. $10 fucking. The whole system is a sham, dude. It's a sham. It's shady business. And I just said, look, okay, I'll get this degree. It's whatever the F. I'll keep doing my thing. I'll get my business set up, which I did 2019. I'll handle my business. That's when I started doing the college stuff, was earlier, like 2014, 2015 is when I started going through the program after the fact, because I was already working. I was already making money like college grads. It's just, let me just go ahead and get this as a formality. I didn't put a significant energy into it because I was already making money. It didn't really matter. And then I just completed it and said, okay, fine. It's in the books. I don't care. Who knows? I might die soon. It's all scam. And then the school started scamming me and I'm like, this is all a joke. The bottom line is that whole SAVE Act and everything else with student loans, I have no problem with the idea if they were gainfully employed, they got value out of the degree, the school wasn't a scam, etc. I got no problem with the idea of you should pay that back. At the same time, a lot of these schools are scams, Corinthian colleges, etc. I went through ones that were scams. Some of the degrees are garbage. My degree is a good one, but some of the degrees are garbage, unaccredited. There's all sorts of things that I do think there needs to be some kind of middle ground to just cut it all or cut none. I think there should be some middle ground. What I thought was a good middle ground is what they refused to do. Whatever you're required to pay back should be correlated to the money you make on the job. So if you make a certain amount of money or greater, then a percentage of what you make is, okay, this is what you pay. For example, let's say somebody just graduated college, they get a little job out of school, it only pays $50,000, but they got $100,000 in student loans. We already know that person's not going to pay that loan back, right? It's common sense. However, they probably could pay $25,000, and then you offer them a repayment plan that stretches it out over time. Then if they get a raise, they have to recertify. So they have to say, how much do you make now? Okay. And you can back it against the tax forms, which are a scam, but you can back it against tax forms and say, okay, now you make $75,000. That means you can afford to pay $35,000, right? And just bump it up according to what they make and then measure that against what they owe. And then eventually some might get waived off. They do that now with the public service. It's no different. I say it should be based on their ability to repay. What that's going to do for the government, if they were smart, and I know there's at least one senator listening to my show at CryptoTalk.fm, what that does for the government is it lets you put it to the test with real world data. If you got people out there that are going through colleges and then they're coming out and they're barely able to get jobs that pay $50,000, $60,000, that means our college situation is broken. That's what that means. Not broken in the sense of a lack of education, but broken in the sense that there are a lot of employers who I actually talked to people who told me, I only hire from the Harvards and the Stanfords and the Yales of the world because that person came from Yale. And so he had a bias on the big schools. I actually recently then heard somebody else say, I refuse to hire anybody from Harvard. Like they're being picky about what school you get it from. I went through a circus literally recently of people who were talking about, what is this WGU? And like WGU, okay, it's accredited, but it's online. You don't have to go to a classroom. I think it's a scam, but the point is that it's accredited. Same with University of the People, same thing. It's accredited. I think it's a joke because you have peer testing, but it's accredited. It's an accepted school. But there's bias where the employers will turn down those degrees or they'll overlook those candidates because they don't recognize the college or whatever. There are candidates that come from India, candidates that come from Germany or whatever. They got their masters over there and then they come over here and the people are looking at it like, well, I don't recognize that school. Who cares? It's still a master's degree, right? And they're probably better educated than we are. My point is, everything is positioned around, is that education financially benefiting that person to the degree that they can, no pun intended, that they could pay you back? And if they're not getting the jobs that they should be getting according to what the education says it should, the government should step in and they should call out those employers and those colleges. Those employers should not be allowed to discriminate based on the college. If you pass the college and it's accredited, whether regional or national, it doesn't matter. If it's accredited and they passed it, you cannot discriminate against them because it doesn't match your alma mater. They shouldn't be able to do that, but they can. And if I'm a candidate and I know that I'm highly qualified, and I'm just using myself as an example, if I know I'm highly qualified, but I'm getting overlooked because this idiot over here has a bachelor's degree in XY that they think is a better degree, even though I got 20 years in the game, no, I should be allowed to sue that company and say that's discrimination. That's literally what it is. I have significantly more experience, and the only reason you overlook me is because I was not your alma mater and you don't recognize my college, even though it's accredited. F you, I want to be able to sue them. Default judgment, there is no appeal, pay that man, and stop discriminating against it. That's what I'd like to see. I would also like to see the federal government say, we need to rethink federal student loans. We need to stop issuing loans under the assumption of how much money you're going to make in the workplace when we know these companies are trying hard not to hire these candidates. They're trying hard not to hire humans, and they're rushing to AI, which you, government, refuse to regulate the AI to make sure it's not doing what happened down at FSU where it's telling the freaking shooter exactly all the things that person needs to know to shoot up the damn place. We can't have it both ways. If you're going to rush to AI, you better lock that crap down to make sure it's not able to do that stuff. And you should not allow or permit those employers to just choose not to hire people because AI is there when AI screws up in the first place. I'm ranting, but you get where I'm going with this whole student loan fiasco. That's a byproduct of a time prior to AI when we told these students, you need to go get STEM degrees. That's going to be the future of tech. And then we do AI where they can't get the jobs, or if they do, they're not good paying jobs. Then those people can't pay the loan. Then they default on the loan. The taxpayer's out. What did we get for it? We refuse to work with those students. We refuse to work with them to try to make it easier for them to pay what they can and stop worrying about a specific dollar amount. We need to go off what they can make, and then we need to work hard to make sure they're still able to get the jobs that make the money, that make it easy to pay it back. In the high level, the education system's over frickin' priced. We know all that game. If we don't fix all that stuff, nothing's going to change. But we need to do a better job, government, about how we position the loan, how we enable paying it back, how we enforce that whole thing. We also need to stop threatening students because they can't pay, because it's not their fault, because you allowed those companies to discriminate against people and to bias towards AI that's running unfettered, telling shooters how to shoot up a fucking school. I'm done. I'm not going to rant anymore. The remainder of my episode, let's call this a 101, shall we? Something occurred on CoinMarketCap that was very disappointing and very distressing, but I figured, you know what? I need to do this because it seems like people just don't fucking understand. So all I would ask is that you spread the word because people don't seem to understand. We're going to be talking about cryptocurrency graphs. It doesn't only apply to cryptocurrency, but that's the relevant topic. We're going to talk about cryptocurrency graphs. People don't seem to understand cryptocurrency graphs at all. I don't think people understand cryptocurrency graphs. The fundamentals of a cryptocurrency graph, they're telling you a picture, okay? The picture may or may not pan true due to a variety of factors. But the most important thing that people don't seem to understand about a cryptocurrency graph, it's only as good as the amount of data, as in the passage of time and activity. It's only as good as the amount of data represented in said graph. If you have a project that just launched 2 months ago, why the fuck does it make sense to look at the all chart? To you, you should be slapping yourself if that's what you do, because it doesn't make any sense. It's only been 2 months. You probably shouldn't look at the month chart because it's too early. The graph needs time. It needs to season. It needs to get enough information to best give you a picture. So if it's just launched, all you can really look at is, maybe the hourly charts, daily charts. Then you can try to see if a pattern forms. Then it goes off activity. Sometimes activity's low, sometimes activity's high. It throws off your perspective. There's a project out there that I'm not going to call the name because I don't want to give them any sort of play, but there's a project out there. It launched essentially at the beginning of the year. For all intents and purposes, the beginning of the year. So less than 5 months out. And yet there's people that will look at the all chart for this project. And if you look at the all chart, it says that we're 99.56% down. A straight up rug pull, right? What they don't understand is everything keeps happening on a very slow, methodical scale. It just launched less than 5 months ago. Did it have a significant decrease in value over the 5 months? Absolutely. But if you were to analyze that project, the month, the week, you're going to see there was actual traffic. Things happened. And the price variation starts to form a picture because there's enough activity now. The simple result of what I just described, if it's a new project, an immature project, it's stupid to look at the all chart, stupid to look at the year chart, might be stupid looking at the month chart because it's new. If it's a mature project, which is why we zoom out to the month chart for Ethereum and Bitcoin, they're mature. We are then looking at patterns over a sustained period of time that usually form a picture that we can usually confidently trust. Still doesn't mean that there are not these other factors that come into play that derail what we seem to see. So, if you're one of those people, and you know who you are, who looks at a graph, chart, and sees that it's 99% down and you scream rug pull, I would implore you to really think about the length of time said project has been in play. And I would implore you to try looking at some of the other metrics, including the 24-hour chart, the 1-day chart, 1-week chart. I would implore you to kind of look and compare and then contrast that with how long the project's been in play. And you're going to probably find said project might actually be up on the day, which isn't a bad thing if it's only been active for a few days. Doesn't necessarily mean it'll sustain. That's why you shouldn't FOMO off what you do see. That's the first thing. The second thing is a graph will always point you in one direction or another. You, ideally, buying when it's red, selling when it's green. I had somebody come at me on CoinMarketCap who said, yay, and I paraphrase, but yay, it's green, now's the time to buy. No. It doesn't make any damn sense. When you go to the store, you're looking for discounts. So why does it make any fucking sense to wait for price to go up before you buy something? It doesn't. We only do that in crypto. That's the trap. That's why if you're going to buy, that rhymes, you should look for a discount. Looking for a discount is the easiest thing to do because then you'll be able to make profit if and when it goes back up. If it's a garbage project, I can't help you out. I'm only referring to projects that look like they have something about them that is sustained and supported. I'm not talking every garbage. Not every garbage follows these rules. It's up to you what you do. I'm trying to help people that are misreading graphs and they're taking the wrong actions, which is causing them to get wrecked. And then they claim scam or rug pull when it's might not be. Hopefully that's helpful and hopefully you understand. If you got questions, you can always ask. We're here to try to help. That's assuming you're not a mark, but we're here to try to help best we can. Long term, I'm not going to be doing heavy coverage on crypto while it's in this middling state, but we also have to see what's going to happen with everything that's, international, etc., the shooting attempt on the president and all the nonsense that's happening worldwide before we see any sort of movement, A or B, with cryptocurrency. And so if you're going to be in it, trading smart, it's the best thing you can do, or just holding the line and being silently waiting for some movement. Just make sure you're not foaming off green. That's all. If you're going to buy on discounts. That's it, right? And then on the maturity of the project, use the graph accordingly and be smart about it before you make a decision. You do all that and it's easy, but it's going to be boring. There's too many that are gamblers trying to roll the dice and they're frustrated because things aren't happening quick. They're not supposed to happen quick, believe it or not. The ones that happen quick are usually the scam ones. Just FYI.